Right now, Nick Krall should be walking around the Cincinnati Reds offices singing to himself, should he stay or should he go?
You are Locked On Reds, your daily Cincinnati Reds podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hi, I'm Jeff, and he's Steve, and on today's Locked On Reds podcast, a little bit later on, we're going to tell you exactly how much Chase Burns has left to pitch this season. In just a few minutes, we will look at some guys who are rising in the trade value and some guys whose stock might be lowering just a bit with their recent performances. But we will begin with a couple of guys who I think there's got to be an honest conversation about. Are they better with the Reds, or are they better as trade chips? And I think we've talked a lot, Steve, about JJ Bleday, and we'll definitely get into him a little bit more just in case folks have not heard our position on this matter. But I actually want to start with somebody else because we keep hearing Spencer Steer's name in a lot of different trade rumors, whether it be, to the Blue Jays, who now there's a lot of folks saying that the Blue Jays are going to sell, so probably not them. I've seen some folks saying maybe the Cleveland Guardians. There's a recent article out by your friend and mine, Gordon Whitmire, talking about potential trade landing spots for different Reds players. He has the Seattle Mariners as a potential landing spot, and I'll talk to Ty Gonzalez from Locked On Mariners about that on tomorrow's show. But I want to ask you this, Steve, because I don't know that I have a concrete answer for it. Is Spencer Steer better for the Reds on the roster, or is he better for the Reds as a trade chip?
So this is a hard question because you have to ask yourself, what kind of value are the Reds going to get out of him if you keep him around? What kind of value is he going to bring in return in a potential deal? I don't think other teams value him the way that Cincinnati values him. I don't think that other teams value him the way that we value him. You look at what he brings to this team and this roster, the flexibility to be able to move all over the field. Now, sometimes the defense that he provides at certain places they put him is a little suspect, but he'll go wherever they point him and he'll play wherever they say play. That brings real value to a team that we've talked about really needs to go and find itself a new catcher. It needs to go find itself at least one more infielder. It needs to go find itself 3 outfielders, basically. So that is a lot of territory to cover for a team that's not going to spend a lot of money in free agency. So having a guy like Spencer Steer that can move around to all of those places except catcher, and I've heard speculation from time to time that Spencer Steer is actually the emergency catcher. Like if something were to happen in a game, they would put him back there. I don't ever want to see that happen. But
flashbacks to Kyle Farmer.
Exactly. Spencer Steer's value to this team is that flexibility and is that ability to play. Now, he is very, very quietly, very, very, not flashy at all, putting up a very good season. His numbers have really started to turn a corner. You look at his overall performance on the year, Jeff, he's at 16 home runs right now, batting average of 245, on base 324, slugging 432. His OPS plus is now up over 100. He sits at 105 right now, 5% better than league average. I think it's in the Reds' best interest to keep him in Cincinnati, continue to use him the way that he's been used. He's going to give you better than a league average performance. What he's going to bring in return is a couple of prospects that are maybe not. And this team can't afford those kind of deals. If you're going to trade away Spencer Steer's production, if you're going to trade away his flexibility, you've got to get almost a guarantee back. You got to be sure that you're going to be filling at least one of those spots that you're in real trouble with. And I don't know that a deal for Spencer Steer gets that done. I don't think he's a big enough name, a big enough get for another team. I mean, you yourself say you think that whoever trades for him is going to use him as a platoon first baseman. That's not going to bring you a lot of value back in return.
It's not. The interesting part about this, though, is I continue to read things, and not just about the Reds, but about the league as a whole, is that Jeff Passan, Jesse Rogers, Ken Rosenthal, Mark Feinsand, basically anyone who is a national writer, when they are asked, what is the market deficiency? What is the thing that is just not available that contenders are looking for? They all say right-handed hitters that can mash lefties. So as much as I do agree that normally a platoon guy is not going to bring you back, the Reds might be able to set the market here if Spencer Steer's available. And this is where my hang up is coming with this, because I would agree with you, except for that one point gives me a little bit of pause of like, okay, maybe they can get that guaranteed guy, or at least as close to guarantee as possible, that fills a need elsewhere with him. Because if that is the case, then would you trade him?
Well, let me throw a question right back at you. What would it take to get in return for you to be willing to trade away your Spence Army knife trademark?
The mashed potatoes. I think it would need to be a deal that is very similar to what the Reds did to get Trevor Bauer, or what the Reds did to get Scott Rowland, where it was a year they weren't contending. They brought in a guy who then heralded a year or two of contention. And that's got to be the case here, which means we're not talking about guys who are AA. We're talking about guys who probably have already debuted a little bit in the major leagues and have, they got their feet wet. They aren't the greenhorns that they used to.
I hear you, but I really struggle to see the return being worth the offset, it being able to offset the loss of Spencer Steer. He's a guy, we don't ever really talk about him being the core. We don't ever talk about him being the guy that should get the 7-year deal, right? Well, we've talked about them extending him, but he's never quite in that conversation. He's not in that Sal Stewart conversation. He's not in that Ellie conversation. He's not in that Chase Burns conversation, right? So, but very quietly, he has provided real value to this team. And I just—
Would you argue that he's kind of the glue that holds them all together, though?
We don't talk about him being a leader in the clubhouse. We don't talk about him being a leader on the field. He just very quietly, very unassumingly goes out there, does his job, and allows other players to be put in positions to be better, allows the manager to fill holes in non-traditional ways. Without Spencer Steer, Tito's hands would have really been tied a lot this year, because he wouldn't have had the flexibility of Spencer Steer. Tito may have had to play a couple games in the field. Things have been so bad at certain times this year.
Tito would have had to play center field.
Exactly. So you take all that into account, Jeff. I mean, could the Reds set the market here? Maybe, but I really feel like when that phone call occurs between Nick Krall and whatever the other team is, whoever's on the other end of the phone, I feel like that conversation ends with somebody going, yeah, that's just a little too steep. We're not going to pay that much. And if that's the answer, then Spencer Steer should stay in Cincinnati.
I agree with you on that. Let's turn this to the JJ Bleday part of this conversation, because I think you and I are in the minority here, because we both agree that he will be a better trade chip. And I think that even the Reds, even the reporting coming out of the front offices of Great American Ballpark, is that they value him more as a guy to keep. And I think that he would be better off traded.
I totally agree with you. I think it would be very short-sighted to keep him around for a couple reasons. You do have one more year of team control with him, but beyond that, I don't see that as a guy. I don't see him as a guy that the Reds are going to sign long-term beyond that. I see that he would write out that contract. He would be gone. You look at his career and what he's done, Jeff, in the 2024 season, he put up an OPS plus of 120. He was 20% better than league average in 2024. Now you jump to 2025 and his OPS plus dropped to 90. His WAR went from being 2.1 to negative 0.5. So now you look at where he's performing right now here in 2026. His OPS plus, again, is up at 120. He currently sits at 121. I feel like there is a huge potential for a drop-off in 2027, whatever 2027 looks like. This is the type of player that you brought in that it didn't cost you very much to get him. You kind of bought low on him, and now you can sell high. And in the model that the Cincinnati Reds have said time and time again that they are going to follow, this is the guy you trade. You buy low, you sell high, you replenish the system somewhere, somehow. This is how you do it. The model that the Reds are trying to create, you cannot develop attachments to players. You cannot have that kind of mindset and maintain a successful team on the field or build a successful team on the field. Do I trust Nick Krall to get this done and get it right? I don't. But what should they do? they should be taking all offers on JJ Bleday and trade him to the highest bidder.
He is at the highest point of his value, and the trade deadline and in the off season and things like that, baseball becomes more of a stock market type thing. And if you've got a guy at the highest point of his value, you got to look to sell and see what you can get for him. Because I just don't think he's this good. And in a comparison that I made the other day was to Brandon Drury. But let me add another comparison in there, because the Reds did trade Brandon Drury. The Reds did not trade TJ Friedl at the highest point of his value. And look where he's at now. I'm just saying, like, it happens as much as we hate to say it.
That's
because
not
we
a knock
like
on
TJ.
Friedl.
Me too.
Yeah, and that's not a lot knock on Friedl. It's just the reality of the situation. Players, that their career trajectory goes up, they level, and then they drop off. TJ's happened faster than anybody really wanted or expected, but it went and it followed what every other player in the history of the game has done. The Reds missed their window. And they have an open window right now on JJ Bleday that they need to exercise. This is the same thing with Tyler Stephenson. It's a window that's open at a time where he's performing the best that he's performed of the season. You trade that guy then, especially when you know you can't retain him later. I don't think they can retain JJ Bleday. We know they can't retain Tyler Stephenson. These are the moves you have to make to improve this franchise.
Boy, 2026, man. Realistic Jeff is trying to take over optimistic Jeff. I don't know what to do.
I've always known there was a battle going on in your head. It's not pretty. But listen, you know what? There's a lot of guys on this team, Jeff. We've talked about just a few that you keep them or you trade them, but there's a lot of names floating around that the Reds could move. Some of them are on an upward trajectory of their performances improving. Some of them, their stock values dropping. We'll tell you who's who coming up next.
A big thank you to Amazon for this limited break. This back-to-school season, spend less on your kids with Amazon. We all know how crazy back-to-school shopping can be. It starts with just a few items on your list, and then all of a sudden, you're shopping for supplies and clothes and lunch gear and tech and about 10 other things that you didn't see coming. It adds up fast. The school supply list, when you look at things for your kids each and every day, you initially know what you're going for, and then all of a sudden your child decides that they need to tell you about this and that and all of the other things. And then all of a sudden your first grader's got as much inventory as somebody who's traveling the world. Shopping like this can get out of control if you're not careful. Or, when school says that your child needs a calculator and headphones and a tablet for class, and somehow you're buying another one before the school year even begins. Since when did kids need so much tech for school anyway? Remember, with Amazon's low back-to-school prices, you just spend less on your kids this year, because every dollar you don't spend on them is a dollar you haven't spent on them. Shop back to school at Amazon and spend less on your kids.
You already live this team each and every day. Thanks for being an everydayer. Thanks for being here. Make sure you click subscribe. Make sure you click that notification bell. You can also join the Everydayer Club, lockedonpodcast.com/everydayer. $5 a month, $50 a year is going to get you ad-free Locked On Reds over in the audio feed, plus a lot more that's coming your way a little bit later this month. All right, Jeff. Let's talk trade value. Let's talk stock, because at the end of the day, you're looking at the goods. You're looking at who's on an upward trajectory. You're looking at who's falling off. And if you're a team that's in contention, you're trying to evaluate your own team, see where your deficiencies are, and go out and get somebody better to fill that need. The Reds have some real bona fide major leaguers that they can move at this break. We've talked about JJ Bleday. We talked about Tyler Stephenson just a little bit there. We've talked about Spencer Steer. The Reds have a couple arms out in that bullpen that would be of real value to a team in contention. They're going to be calling about Pierce Johnson. They're going to be calling about Caleb Ferguson. They may or may not be calling about Sam Moll. And let's start there, because the Sam Moll question is probably a little bit harder of a question. A major league lefty is a commodity. It is a guy that everybody's looking to pick up. The problem is that there is the tale of two Sams. There's sometimes good Sam Moll, and then there's sometimes not good Sam Moll. And right now we seem to be in a not good era with Sam Moll. And I think that he's probably lowered his trade value over the last 6 weeks or so.
Yeah, the last 6 weeks, especially last month, he has pitched the second most games, second most appearances on the team. He's been in 11 ball games. The weird part about this is he is far below the most innings in that time span, because whenever he comes out, he's been giving up runs, he's been giving up hits, and he's been giving up base runners and not been getting as many outs. In fact, over those last 11 appearances, Steve, he's averaging 2 base runners per inning, doing a lot of walking and throwing a lot of pitches. In fact, Cowboy was really going in on him on the broadcast late last night in Seattle, where he came in, first batter he faced, full count. Got him out eventually. Next batter he faced, full count. Got him out eventually. And that's Sam Moll. That's who he is. Like, he gets ahead of hitters usually, but then he throws waste pitch after waste pitch after waste pitch, trying to get guys to chase, and they're just not chasing. The chase rate on him is very low this season. And so for me, that's the hard part, where we talk about a lot. Guys are traded based on their contracts first and production second. But the production here is so negative as of late that I think if you are to trade him, it's likely you're not getting much in return. And remember, the Reds traded Joe Boyle, who ultimately is kind of flamed out. He got to the major leagues pretty quick after the trade, and he was even a starter for the A's for a moment, but he had a ton of control issues and did not ever really pan out in the major. I think he's still in the Rays farm system right now, so maybe he gets fixed. But ultimately, the Reds are probably looking at a similar deal where they get a very speculative prospect back if they were to trade Sam Moll. And so I think for that reason, he's our first guy that we're looking at here. Trade value, the stock's kind of fallen.
Yeah, I think that stock is down. For me, let me ask you it a different way. Given Sam Moll's underperformance, if you can get anything for Sam Moll right now at this deadline, do you just trade him and get something that maybe you get lucky and stumble into a valuable piece in return?
I would lean toward keeping him, but my argument was an argument that I made this past offseason of like, let's see what more he's got, because he's not a free agent until after next season. But whatever next season looks like and however that might work, I mean, you might not have him for very long. So I think that he's one of those guys that you almost have to factor the CBA into this. And if you are getting something in return, I think you got to pull the trigger and make the trade.
We also touched on Tyler Stephenson just a little bit there at the end of the first segment, but let's dig into that for just a minute. I really feel like the market is shaping up very, very nicely for a deal with Tyler Stephenson to get traded. I think there's going to be actually a bit of a bidding war in the Reds' favor in this situation. And I hope that Nick Krall can capitalize on this. The Dodgers need a catcher. The White Sox need a catcher. The Yankees need production at catcher. So those are 3 good teams to have competing here. Dodgers and Yankees for obvious reasons. White Sox trying to convince everybody that they are for real. The White Sox trying to convince everybody that the days of just 2 short years ago where they are as bad can be are over. Them making a legitimate addition at the break or at the deadline, rather, I think goes a long way with their fan base to say that they're actually serious about trying to be a team that's in contention. So I kind of like how this sets up for the Reds and Tyler Stephenson to get maximum value in return for a deal for a guy that has made it pretty clear he's out of here at the end of this contract.
Yeah, I just don't see that relationship being repaired. And who knows, maybe the Reds are able to trade him and sign him as a free agent in the offseason if he doesn't sign an extension before then. I don't know. That feels like pie in the sky. What I do know is Tyler Stephenson fits not 1, but 2 scarce market things that the Reds can really build up and hopefully get some good trade value for him. He is a catcher, and there's not many available on the open market in any given year. He's also a right-handed hitter, which, as I mentioned a few moments ago, every single national writer that is evaluating the trade deadline right now is saying, ain't no right-handed hitters available. Well, guess what? Please call Nick Krall. I don't know, 513-555-1234, whatever the heck the number is for Nick Krall. Please call him right now because Tyler Stephenson is available. And Tyler Stephenson over the last month, Steve, has been 70% better than the rest of his season. His split OPS plus is saying that. He's also been, over the last calendar month, 63% better than a league average hitter because he's just been on fire. He's hitting 360. He's slugging 560. Absolutely going crazy. And his on-base percentage is Joey Votto-esque at 407. Like, we're talking about a really good hitter right now. He's gotten hot at the perfect time, and he should be a very highly sought-after player at the trade deadline.
You know, real quickly here, another guy that has gotten hot at exactly the right time and is a starting pitcher is named Brady Singer. You look at Brady Singer, his last 5 starts, Jeff, in 3 of his last 5 starts, he's gone 7 innings or more for the Cincinnati Reds. He has finally turned a corner and gone back to being that Brady Singer, that Mr. Reliability, that every 5th day, go out there and do your thing kind of guy. I think he probably, of all of the Reds trade pieces, could bring you the biggest return because starting pitching, we all know, is a commodity that's hard to get. So you can charge a premium for the starting pitching. Think more of a Tyler Mahle type deal where somebody is going to overpay to get Brady Singer for the stretch run and a contending team.
I low-key think the Reds should maybe try to see if the White Sox are interested in both Brady Singer and Tyler Stephenson, because they should be. And then let's see if he could get a really highly rated prospect. There's a couple of pitchers that I'm looking at, not Noah Schultz. Noah Schultz is a very well-known prospect within the White Sox system. He's like top 20, I think, on most rankings for like the entire league. I don't think it's him, but like, could they get a guy who was a first-round pick a couple of years ago, in Hagen Smith, who's a very interesting left-handed pitcher? Could they get somebody like that? I think it'd be very interesting to see if you package together 2 fixes for what ails the White Sox right now. I'd like to talk to our friend Todd Welter over at Locked On White Sox to see what he thinks about that. But no, I'm with you. And this is a very important start. I think we got 2 more starts to watch Brady Singer in a Reds uniform. It's here on Wednesday against the Mariners, and then probably next week at home against the Guardians, and then we will see him on the move. He might have 3 if you really stretch him to the deadline, but I think ultimately we're talking about Brady Singer being another guy that's in high demand. There's a lot of starting pitching that is available. This is different from Tyler Stephenson, where Tyler Stephenson fits 2 scarcities. While he's not the top of the market, Brady Singer's still going to be a well sought after player at this deadline. And I'm looking forward to seeing how that rolls. Let's shift gears though, Steve, because last night Chase Burns shoved, and he did it for 5 innings, which is what we should expect the rest of the way. Running a business shouldn't feel like you're just trying to connect a bunch of systems that were never designed to work together anyway. There's one app for accounting, there's another for inventory, there's another for sales, and somehow none of them talk to each other. That's where Odoo comes in. Odoo is an all-in-one business management software that brings every part of your business together in one powerful platform. From sales and accounting to inventory and marketing, everything works together in one place, helping your team move faster, stay organized, and keep growing the business instead of just managing software. I mean, when we think about the organizations that work the best, they are aligned from top to bottom. It feels like there's one central idea that keeps the organization moving forward. And as we always say, we hope that the Reds will get there someday. So when you're looking for your organization to grow and stop just managing software, become a great organization with Odoo. They win because operations matter, and that's why you should get Odoo. Try for free today at odoo.com/lockedon. That's odoo.com/lockedon. We encourage you to keep the conversation going with us after the show is over. You can follow us on social media. I'm on X and on TikTok at Jeff Carr with 3 Fs. Steve is on X at S Offenbaker with 2 Fs. And you can follow the show at Lockdown Reds everywhere you get your social media. All right, Steve, Chase Burns shoved on Tuesday night. He looked phenomenal. Seattle had no answer for him. The only guy that was really doing any damage to him was Josh Naylor, and all of that damage was just singles. There were a couple of, just well-placed hits that nobody could get to, and Josh Naylor was on first base. Everyone else struggled with Chase Burns, and according to multiple metrics, he had some of the best stuff that any pitcher had last night, and he did it for all of 5 innings. Now, there's going to be some folks that are just like, when is he going to go deep into ball games? That's going to be next year, because the rest of this season is about workload management. There's a lot of folks, including Cowboy on the broadcast last night, was talking about, boy, it's probably going to be pretty soon that he gets shut down. And I think that this is the smart decision. There's not like a 1-for-1 statistic that tells you exactly how many innings a guy needs to throw before he gets hurt whenever he's in his first full season of Major League Baseball. But we kind of just know. And I think that next year he'll be cut loose a little bit more. But as for right now, they got to make sure that he does not throw too many innings.
Yeah, I could not agree more. I don't know if you happened to watch when they took him out of the game last night. They showed an extended shot of Terry Francona talking with Chase Burns in the dugout, and you could very clearly see an explanation was being provided to Chase Burns. That was more than oh, good job, kid, we're going to go with the bullpen and, on about your business. There was a real conversation taking place, and you could tell that Terry Francona was explaining the rationale of taking Chase Burns out of that game. I like
it's very much the body language that I have whenever Hannah's just like, no, Jeff, just 2 donuts. Don't go past 2.
Oh boy, we've seen how that works out. Listen, Chase Burns took that like a professional. This is going to be his reality over the remainder of the 2026 season. I think that when you look at what Chase Burns could do, we talked at the All-Star break about how to maximize the season for Chase Burns. It involved the 5-inning start. We talked about that. And we projected that out. I really think it's reasonable to get Chase Burns to September with what he has left. You look at his numbers right now. In 3 of his last 5 starts, Jeff, this 5 innings thing is not new. 3 of his last 5 starts have been 5 innings. They've started to kind of lean this way anyway. And I think you just have to stick to your guns, much like the Washington Nationals did with Strasburg back in the day. They set a number. He hit that number. They were in a playoff push, and they shut him down because he hit his number. They didn't waver. They didn't teeter. They didn't tinker. They didn't decide to, well, maybe if we just put him in the bullpen and screw up everything that he's done all season long, we can keep him around longer. Don't do that. Resist that temptation. Chase Burns is going to be an absolute legend during his time in Cincinnati if you keep him healthy and you keep him consistent and you keep him on routine. You don't do any of those things by shoving him down in the bullpen in a season where he's thrown more innings than he's ever thrown, harder than he's ever thrown, more often than he's ever thrown. And now you go ask him to warm up 5 or 6 times a week. We're not going to do that, folks. That's a bad idea.
And I think the idea of starter reliever is fine if you start out as a reliever and then move into the rotation. Once you move into the rotation, that's it. Let's not mess with that. Chase Burns is not Nick Martinez. Nick Martinez is a bit of a unicorn in the way that he approaches the game of baseball, in that I don't know that he needs rest. Like, I think he might be AI. I don't know. But, I mean, he's pitching amazingly for the Rays this year, which I'm happy to see. But
and if we're being honest, Jeff, if we're being honest, he's not an elite starting pitcher like Chase Burns. He's not an elite starting pitcher like Hunter Green. You're not taking Hunter Green and shoving him down in the bullpen. You're not taking Chase Burns and shoving him down in the bullpen, because if you do something to mess him up, you're out an elite number 1 ace starting pitcher. What Nick Martinez, he had a banner year for the Cincinnati Reds, and that was great. But if you messed him up, you're messing up like a league average starting pitcher that, okay, it's sad, but yeah, it's not a big deal. So these are very different mindsets. You're right. Chase Burns is not Nick Martinez and should not be treated that way.
No, and I have some specific Locked On Reds maths for you when it comes to what we can look at for Chase Burns the rest of the way. Yes, I know. I promise I double-checked all these. I used a calculator. I don't add this stuff up myself. But if you look back at what Chase Burns has done throughout his collegiate career and now his professional career, and the workload that he has taken on year over year, his biggest jump was back in college whenever he transferred from Tennessee to Wake Forest. 2023, he pitched for Tennessee. He threw 72 innings. 2024, he pitched for Wake Forest. He threw 100 innings. roughly a 33% jump in his total innings. So if we can take that and add 33% to what he did in 2025, then we're looking at about 144 innings this season. And he's already at 107 2/3 innings. So you add on to that, he's got about 36 1/3 innings left, give or take a couple of outs, but basically about 36 to 37 innings left. If you keep to just 5 innings a start, you got 7 more starts, which then means he's being shut down about the second week in September if you limit him to 1 start per week. Now, let's recap all that because I just said a lot of numbers. He's going to start once a week. He's going to throw you 5 innings. They're going to be phenomenal, and the Reds are going to have a good shot to win. And then they're going to shut him down in the second week of September because of how all of this goes. When you look at how everything was jumped, even the batters faced, the way that they jumped year over year, his biggest jump, again, 2023 to 2024. If we just do rough maths and say, okay, he's going to jump 100 batters faced 2025 to 2026, he's got about 117 batters left to face this year. Again, that's going to point to about 7 more starts. And the reason that I put, a question mark in the games, in the overall games column is, do you put him in the bullpen? We are saying no. You keep him in the rotation. 7 more starts. September 9th or 10th will probably be his last start of the season.
So if I'm the Cincinnati Reds, this is how I'm doing this, Jeff. I'm gonna set a number that he has 5 more starts at 5 innings each, 25 more innings. And when you get to that 5th start, you have a sit-down conversation with Chase Burns and you ask him if he has 1 more left in him. And he's going to say yes. But then you look at the metrics, you look at his velocity, you look at his spin rates, you look at how he's recovering, you look at how he's performing, and you decide if you're going to give him that 6th start. I don't give him the 7 that you projected out there. I give him 6 maximum at 5 innings, keep it 30 innings, and then I shut him down, and whoever's knocking around anywhere can pitch in September. This team is going to be well out of contention. It's going to be meaningless September baseball. I shut him down no more than 6 starts at 5 innings. So 30 innings more maximum. No more of this bullpen talk. No more like trying to push him all the way through to the end of the season. Set a number, stick to it, follow the model that has worked in the past with other young pitchers, and have him ready to just be an absolute beast in 2027.
And that is where we'll end today's podcast. Thanks so much for checking out today's Locked On Reds podcast and making us part of your day. If you're not part of the Everydayer Club, I encourage you to follow the link down in the description to learn more about that. Make sure you're subscribed right here on YouTube or on your favorite podcast app if you're listening to us somewhere. And make sure you check out tomorrow's episode as Ty Gonzalez from Locked On Mariners will join me to recap this series, but also talk about how the Reds and the Mariners can link up for yet another trade. It feels like the Reds and the Mariners make all of the trades together. We'll talk about that on tomorrow's show. Steve will be back with me on Friday as we keep you up to date every single day on all the trade rumors as we head toward the trade deadline and all the movements of your Cincinnati Reds. Now, make sure you go check out Locked On MLB. We got 3 different shows with 3 different angles on the league at large, giving you everything that you need to know about Major League Baseball every single day. Locked On MLB, just like Locked On Reds, free and available everywhere you get your podcast. But when it comes to Steve, Tim Daniel over on the Postcast, and myself, we will be Locked On Reds every single day.